we don't got the yawns the whole time.
Yep. Check. 1, 2. Check.
Check.
Let's see what we sound like.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Earth to Mike. Welcome to 98% Podcast, where we hear real stories from real people, and I'm here with Mike Hall. So, Mike, tell us about yourself.
All right, where to begin? How far back do you want me to go?
Well, just do high level first, just so we get to know you a little bit, and then I'll ask some of those.
All right, sounds good.
Questions.
So I'm 32. I got a family. One kid. I currently work as a coach for Nike, but it's an assistant manager position for those that don't know the Nike terms. I guess I work stockroom, but I handle all the product. I guess I shouldn't break the fourth wall here.
You can.
Other than that, man, I really like to do crafts. I like to play a lot of role-playing games. I like to play video games. Dungeons and Dragons is my favorite game. I've been playing that for like, how long ago was 2004? 20 years?
Yeah.
Jeez, yeah. So for 20 years, I've been playing D&D.
Yeah. It's funny because we never played D&D together either.
No, but we did play HeroScape.
We did.
Which is another war game, and wargaming is almost the same thing.
Yeah. Yes, we should probably talk about that. So, HeroScape. So, fun game. If you're out there, they just re-put it into publication. So, if you want to purchase it, you can totally do that now. But, no, it was a game. It came out in, I want to say, early 2000s, and I was a server at the time. And I remember seeing it at Target, because you sell it at Target and Walmart. And at first I saw it, and of course, like, the image on the back is like 2 kids playing this game, and I'm like, do I really want to do that? And then I was like, you know what, I'll buy it. So I bought it, and it ended up being like the coolest game like ever. So for those of you that don't know, so it's this hex tile board game that you build the map however you want, and then you basically do battle on it with these different characters. And what I wanted to do is just get some game nights. So with Nike, when I first started there, I was just like, do y'all want to do a HeroScape night? I just asked random people, and I'm sure my wife at the time was. I remember being like, "Who are these people you're bringing over?" And some I didn't even know. I was just like, they just started working at Nike, and they said they'd be interested. So, okay. So we had like 20, 30 people know exactly where we lived. But yeah, we just bring people over, and we would play this game. And man, we played. Depending on the scenario, I mean, we'd have matches go till like midnight. I think we had one that we did. It was a 2-day one. We got towards the end, and we're like, dude, it's getting really late. And I think Devin was one of the people that was there. Evan Bauer, I'm sure, was there too. Evan was at all of them.
Yeah.
he used to get so mad because he'd be there first so he could pick his army and play, and then he would be like the first one out every game we played. He'd lose his army, and like, why? How is that possible? But yeah, we just have people come over. I remember that specific night, I think Devin and someone else were just like really like into it, and they wanted to finish this game, but it got so late. They're like, well, we'll come over tomorrow. And I was like, is everybody game for that? And everybody's like, yep. And everybody literally showed up the next day, and we finished it that day. So I can't remember if you were there for that one, but
I wasn't. No, I was there. You set up a castle scenario one time where a team had to defend the castle, and then other teams tried to assault the castle.
Yeah, who won?
Dude, I can't remember, man. That was like 10 years ago, but my favorite character in that game is definitely Agent Carr.
You would. You always said that too. Now that I remember
too
that.
Versatile, man. He was good.
Agent Carr. Yeah. It's funny for people out there to be like, what are these people even talking about? But Agent Carr, because you had range, and then you could ghost walk. So basically, like, people couldn't really. I can't remember how that worked. You could disengage. I can't remember. Something happens for range, but then when you were next to someone, like, because he had that big sword, it like upped your attack. Yeah, and he was relatively inexpensive. So, yeah, who was my favorite? Depending on the team, I think I had a favorite on each team because I'd let you guys all pick first, and I'd take the last team out. I remember Sergeant Drake was one of my favorites.
Yeah,
if I was getting
with the grappling hook.
Yeah, because he just grapple hooked everywhere, and his attack was beastly, and he had. Thorian speed, so you couldn't attack him from distance. So he was pretty OP. Yeah, there was him. There was trying to think of some of the other ones. I don't know. There was a ton of good ones though. But yeah, I had my select ones that I was like, they were always like a have to be in the game if I played with that army card because I utilized them well.
Yeah, I mean that game made me fall in love with wargaming, but it's just too expensive now. So I stick to D&D. It's as close as I can get without investing
Yeah.
like hundreds of dollars into a game.
Yeah, it is.
But just to answer questions, just in case anyone has any questions, I did start with second edition D&D, and I never played third edition. Although third edition it's probably, in terms of the fans, the best edition, but I just went from second edition to fourth edition because I didn't want to invest in another edition.
So is there problems with that, or is that fine?
I mean, it just depends on who you ask. I didn't have any issues with fourth edition, but it was very video gamey because I felt like I tried to piggyback on what World of Warcraft was doing, and then it felt very video gamey. And then fifth edition came out and kind of remedied all that. But yeah, I never got into third edition. I did play Pathfinder, which was like a 3.5 edition clone, but I never got into third edition.
See, and I have no idea what you're talking about. This is the best. See, what's funny is because I feel like I dabble on the surface of like lots of things. So I think that's a good example of like I liked HeroScape, so I dabbled in there, but I didn't go down D&D, Pathfinder, none of that stuff. I just kind of stayed there. So it's kind of funny. And then I always go for obscure ones too, like Mutant Chronicles is something that doesn't even exist anymore, and like that was just something I focused on and got into. And why? They don't make it anymore. Why would I even get into it? But I heavily invested in that, and it was a good game, but that was like a flop. Like came out like at least the edition I enjoy, like yeah, it was a flop. It's a bummer. But that's cool. Okay, so gaming, obviously work at Nike. Anything else? Just high level that.
I mean, I love sports. If you can tell, I got the Packers up there from when Brett Favre won us a Super Bowl back in 1997.
Is he the best quarterback of all time?
I mean, him or Bart Starr.
Okay.
Bart Starr is the only quarterback ever three-peat in the championship. But
oh yeah.
People don't consider it because it was the first and second Super Bowl.
Oh, that's fair. Sweet. Okay, so you have the Packers. I remember you always talking about, was that Adventure Time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Adventure Time, definitely my favorite cartoon. It's inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. It did come out when I was 18 though, so I mean I didn't watch it as a kid growing up, but I definitely loved the show.
It was inspired by Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. See, I never watched it. My brother got into it because he's 15 years younger than me, and that was so he was a kid that like was just like Adventure Time. And like I'd catch glimpses of it and like, yeah, I don't know if this is for me, but I never invested in it, so I don't even know if it's actually like how it is exactly. But for people like it. Okay, and then this bad boy right here, what do we got?
So that is Ice. That's the great sword of Eddard Stark. So it's an exact replica. I got the certificate of authenticity up there next to it. That's the sword that he uses to behead the deserter in like the first episode from the Wall.
Okay, so for the one of us living under a rock, so what are we talking about?
Game of Thrones.
Sweet. I guarantee like 90% of people listening to this probably know what you're talking about. But I just noticed you didn't even say Game of Thrones, so I'm like, there's someone out there to be like, what are they talking about? Okay, sweet. So that's a legit sword from there?
It is, yes. It's not sharp though, so.
Okay. We can change that.
Yeah, we definitely can, but it's just wall art. I didn't want it to be dangerous. I lived in an apartment at the time that I got it, and I was just worried that it was going to fall off and fall through the floor.
What? Is it that heavy?
It's pretty heavy, yeah. It's probably like 30, 40 pounds.
See, I sold all my swords when I moved. Because when I had swords when I was in Hollister, I don't remember if I ever showed you, but I had a bunch of like that. I was like into swords when I was a kid. I had these really cool decorative ones and lots of knives. And when I moved, I was like, I'm tired of carrying swords everywhere.
Yeah, the collection changes.
So like I sold. I actually didn't even sell them. I was just like, someone came over to help me move. I was like, do you like swords? He's like, yeah. Do you want some swords? Sure. I showed him. He's like, thanks, man. And I'm like, you're welcome. Just pawning off stuff on people.
I think I do the same thing when I move.
You know what's funny though is like I think one of those swords is actually worth quite a bit. I got it inexpensive, but I think I remember seeing it. I don't know if it's because it was a replica of something, but the design and stuff. I just remember seeing it. I can't remember where I saw it. Some antique store or something for a pretty hefty price. I was like, whoops.
Hey, it happens. I have been looking at for the World of Warcraft fans out there. The Lich King has a sword that's pretty well known called Frostmourne. They did a replica of that, but it was like $700, and I wasn't trying to invest that into that.
Dude, that stuff's pricey.
Yeah.
I went to actually went to Gatlinburg a few weeks ago, few weeks, maybe a month. Was it a month ago? I don't know. Not very long ago, and they had a bunch of sword shops, and I was really surprised with how expensive all that stuff is now.
Yeah.
Like they had like a Thor's hammer replica, cap shield, like a bunch of different swords and stuff, and all of them were like quite a few $100, and I was like, dang, it's expensive. I don't remember it being that much when I was younger.
That's because we didn't have any money.
I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, we went out to Pigeon Forge 2 years ago, and it's just Branson with no cell phone service.
Dude, yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, when I went there, I was like, this looks just like Branson. Except it's a little, I think it might, well, I don't know if it's busier necessarily. It's longer, it's bigger. Yeah. But yeah, I noticed it was funny watching and seeing all the stuff that is there. Like, oh, they have the same wax museum. They have the same
set of buildings.
Wonderworks. They have all the same stuff. I'm like, this is weird.
Oh, they do have goats on the roof, though, I think is what that thing's called.
Yeah?
I don't know what it is. We never went to it, but they got goats that stand on the roof.
I don't know anything about it. I must have missed it. Cool, okay. So, and we kind of already mentioned this, but how do you know me?
So, way back in 2014, when I got my job as a seasonal athlete or a sales associate, you were working at the Branson Nike store, and that's kind of where we met. So in those next few months, we really worked together. I had no intentions of staying at Nike. Mm-hmm. I got a retail job, just came out of the food service. So I was like, I just need something to hold me over till I can find something else I want, and ended up staying there for 10 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So I've been in the retail field for like 10 years now. But yeah, I mean, guys like you, Donovan, Brett, I mean, I'm sure there's more, but just to name a few off the top of my head, I mean, you guys made me really want to stay there and invest because you guys spent time working with a temporary employee to really build me up into something.
Yeah. I mean, I just like training people. I care about people too. So I remember meeting, like, I don't remember did I do training with you?
You did, yeah.
Did I?
So,
yeah.
Actually, whenever we did like our staff dress, I got the Air Max Torch 3. That was
I remember that. Okay, tell that story.
Yeah, so I got them because they looked cool. I mean, you shouldn't get a shoe because it looks cool. You should definitely get one because it feels good. But I tried it on. I was like, hey, this is cool. It's black. It'll match all my work uniforms. And then, I wore them for 3 days, and my forefoot, like my toes hurt so bad. And I just remember you being like, hey, you like those? I was like, yeah, they're all right. And then you're like, why don't you come try these on? It was the Pegasus 29s, the trail ones.
Yeah, I remember. Yep.
I remember putting those on, and I was like, I'm never wearing these shoes again, dude. I bought those Pegasus 29s right there, and I never put those torches on again. I don't even know where they went. I think I gave them to my brother or something. But what's crazy is we still carry the Torch 3 to this day in the Branson store.
I know, because people do exactly what you did. They this looks cool, and they wear it, and then those are probably the same people that down the line that are like, yeah, Nikes just don't fit my feet well. I'm like, well, you haven't tried on the right shoes. What'd you try on the Torches? You know what I think that is it. Well, there you go. Let me show you what we got. It's funny, but it's funny that that's pretty normal though. Like I remember training a lot of people, and yeah, I was always telling people like that. Like it's funny because it's like the cooler looking shoes tended to be the ones that were not as comfortable. Once we converted people, it was really interesting to try something on and be like, oh yeah, this is how it should feel. Like, yeah. So that's cool. Yeah. So that was awesome. We worked together for, how many years did we work together?
I think it was like 2 before you transferred to Osage.
That was it?
Yeah.
Man, I feel like an eternity.
Yeah.
In a good way. Yeah. But yeah, I remember, I had you come over for game nights, and I just remember, I loved working with you. I just remember you were just one of those guys that you wanted to learn stuff, you retain information well, and I just remember you were just overall a cool dude, a guy to invest in and get things done, which was nice because not everybody's that way in that type of atmosphere. So it was fun. And then we also related a lot with just kind of the hobby stuff and HeroScape and all that stuff. Yeah, we got some of the stuff here. But it was good times. Good times for sure.
Yeah, wargaming and superheroes and that kind of culture.
Yeah, I remember a debate about Shredder off of the movie. The the remake, the Nickelodeon remake. I remember we had a Shredder debate because you're like, I thought Shredder was pretty good. I was like, I think Shredder was not very good. We chatted about why. It's so silly. These were being like, well, the way he moved was very unrealistic for that heavy armor, and you're like, nah, I don't know. It was fun. It's a good time. We actually watched those for the first time. I watched them with Rachel like a couple weeks ago. She likes them.
Yeah.
So they never gave us the third one.
Yeah, I know, man.
It's sad.
But they got a new cartoon coming out. I don't know
Yeah.
when, but Ella really likes the 2012 CGI one.
Yeah. That one. That was was that one called just TMNT?
No, but I think it was kind of built off of that. That was the movie. They made a series.
Oh, a TV series. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, we don't watch much TV. Everything I got is still like DVDs and Blu-rays.
You have to go hit Lightning Pond for old time's sake.
Dude, I did already.
Did you?
Yeah, I went there. Rachel's like, where are we going? I was like, we got to go to this pawn shop that I used to go to all the time when I was here. Funny thing is I found the old Batman cartoon, the whole complete series, for $15.
Really?
So I was like, well, why not? Rachel might like that.
Yeah, that's a good deal, man.
That's what I thought. I was like, I didn't intend to buy anything, but it was pretty cool. Okay, so how this is going to work, Mike? So I sent you the questions, out already, so you got time to look at them. But what we do is go through these questions. You're just going to answer, and the goal is just for the audience to be able to connect with you and your story. So what's been cool so far is we've had a lot of like unique guests. Like everybody that's been on has been different, but I think it's cool because we've all found ways, I think, to connect in that space. Mm-hmm. So let's start from the beginning. So what was growing up like for you?
I mean, when I talk with kids now, I can see the difference of it. But when I was growing up in the moment, like I didn't really like know that we didn't have a lot, or like that we were kind of poor, or we lived in a bad neighborhood. But I grew up in San Antonio, and like the west side of San Antonio, for anyone that is aware of the area. I mean, my parents gave us pretty much everything we needed, but like I didn't ask for a whole lot. You know what I mean? I was a kid. Mm-hmm. They just gave me whatever, and I was cool with it. I ran with it. But I mean, I feel like I had a pretty normal childhood. Of course, there's gang-related things. I didn't get involved in any of that stuff, but of course, it's in the area. So when you're in school, you kind of get dragged into some of that stuff. I did drop out of school when I was in the 8th grade, so I do only have an 8th grade education. I felt like knowledge wasn't for me, or learning.
Interesting,
yeah. Sorry. I think it was just what I was learning wasn't interesting to me, because like for me, I really like science. I really like history. And I really like nowadays, I like learning skills that help me grow or get better. But when I was in school, like I didn't care about math or anything like that. So my grades were just terrible. And I remember, I did go to high school, but I only made it a couple months in before, I pulled into the office, and the counselor's like, hey, you got 56 absences. What's going on with that? And I'm like, I don't understand how I could have that many. I'm going to my classrooms, but I was a very quiet kid in school. So my first and second period class were the exact same teacher, because when I went into school, Texas had record low math scores on their, they had tax test is what it was, which is the Texas Assessment of Knowledge and Skills. Mm-hmm. So the class that left before me had the lowest in the nation. So we had 2 math classes. I don't know how I had like 18 absences first period, but 56 the second period. But I went to a long debate with the counselor, which ended up having my mom called. But in Texas, I don't know if it's similar here in Missouri, but in Texas, they'll take you to court for educational neglect and things like that. Your parents could get fined, or you can get pulled into the foster system or anything like that. So my parents unenrolled me from school, and then I actually went and got my first job. So
really?
I went and worked at House of Pizza, which doesn't exist anymore. But I delivered flyers for $5 an hour when I was 14. And it sounds terrible, but minimum wage back then was only $6.25. So actually, that's what fueled my my HeroScape, my funding for that. Because after every day I'd get $25, I'd go buy one of those little blister packs of the figures. So that was actually my first job, and I did that off and on. I didn't do that like as a full-time thing. I would work like 2 or 3 weeks here, here and there. I did that for probably 3 years when I was 17, and then when I was 17, my parents ended up moving to Corpus Christi. Um, I didn't want to go to Corpus Christi, but we went. I hated it. Very industrial. It is on the beach, so you have those nice beach views, but not where we were at. So I ended up going back to San Antonio, living on a couch, and I worked for a recycling company that doesn't exist anymore either. But essentially, they got like plastics and everything. You stood on an assembly line, and you sorted cell phone batteries for 8 hours. So you would just get boxes of these batteries. You have to sort them by brand. So I think that's kind of where my hand speed came from, whatever I was doing, like processing and some things for Nike. But in the environment in like a big city, you're very replaceable at the workplace. So I'd see people just get fired even for hitting the minimums, but because they could feel they could get more out of somebody else, they would just turn you over. Because, I mean, those places are getting like 30, 40 applicants a day. So you had to keep up with the speeds there. I actually didn't mind that place, but I'm a very ambitious person. I don't want that to sound very like bad or anything, but I like growth. I like learning. So I ended up going back to Corpus Christi to try to find something else. I think I was 18 at the time.
Yeah.
That's around the time that I moved up here. So my grandma, she bought a house. She bought a house or trailer, excuse me. But she worked on an island called Shemya, Alaska. It's like 50 miles from Russia. It's like an Air Force base. And she did housekeeping out there. So she worked 3 months on and would have a month off. So I basically lived at her house, help her pay rent, help her keep up with the stuff. But I worked, I won't say a private contractor, but I worked with my uncle as a private contractor, and we worked a lot with Lakeland Pharmacy. And then I actually worked for Lakeland doing their Segway track.
Nice.
So I did that for 2 seasons, which was actually really fun. I love that job, but it's definitely a kid's job. Like, I mean, unless you own that. But Segway did close down, so unfortunately you guys can't go ride Segways in Branson anymore. Maybe I'm the problem. Everywhere work seems to close. After Segway, you might even remember this, but I think that was, I can't remember what year it was, but it's when we had that really bad ice storm, and it started icing in October, and it didn't stop until like May. Dude, it was a long time. It kept snowing and everything.
I don't
Dude, it was bad. But I ended up getting a job working for a nursing home, which I did for 2 years, and I actually loved that job. I don't know why, but I worked in a kitchen for a nursing home, and it was fun. Just the crew I worked with, they made it really enjoyable. I don't want to say I learned a lot of skills there, because I didn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, I mean, I guess it taught me how to cook a little bit. If I could try to take something from every job that I've worked at, because I do try to do that.
Yeah.
But after that location, which ended up closing down 7 years after I quit, so let's keep that streak going. That's when I actually got hired on at Nike. So I worked at Nike for 5.5 years before I stepped away. I went to go drive delivery trucks for FedEx, which, do you remember Nick?
Nick, last name?
Man, what was his last name?
Nick,
Kurzman. He was the FedEx driver that delivered for us.
Oh, was he? Oh, the guy who used to deliver.
Yeah,
I remember him. Yeah, I totally remember him now.
So I actually was talking to him about it, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, you guys looking for help?" Because me and my wife, she got pregnant, so I was looking for something paid a little bit more. It was a mistake to step away. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I stepped away. That was in 2019, and 6 months later, COVID hit, and the FedEx route exploded, and it's a salary job, so you would work however many hours and you got paid the same. So my work hours were like 68, 69, 70-hour work weeks with a newborn child. I was just never home ever, to see her grow up or anything. And I remember Amanda actually reaching out to me and letting me know, like, hey, we got a full-time position at Nike. There's supposed to be movement and leadership. Like, you could really, we could really use you to come back. So I reapplied, and that's where I've been. So I came back. I did come back as a full-time athlete. It was a step backwards from what I was doing. It was a massive pay decrease, but after crunching numbers with her and everything, like, I mean, we scraped by, but we made it happen. And then I just pushed myself to learn as much as I possibly could for the leadership roles. I took that as seriously as I could, and that's where I am today.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah, I was always a big ambassador for you too. I remember them like hearing that you got back on. I was like, sweet. It's like, that's good. So then when I also, like, when you went from to the lead, or was it specialist?
I went to the
specialist and then coach.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I remember being like, sweet, like you need to be there. But one thing that you brought up, and I'm really curious about it, is you talked about being ambitious and being someone who likes to learn a lot. So what do you think the difference was between like the learning that you've done throughout your work career or whatever versus like school, right? Because school, you mentioned you didn't like learning in that aspect. So what do you think the difference is there?
So I don't want to, blame any kind of circumstances or anything like that. But essentially, like, growing up, you hear a lot of like, you can't do that. There's no opportunity for that.
Mm-hmm.
This person's going to get this because of that. And you fall into that mindset. You know what I mean? Like, you fall into the mindset of like, oh, you can't go play sports because you're not big enough.
Yep.
Or you're not fast enough. Or you can't be on an academic team because you're not smart enough. I mean, I was probably like 19 or 20 when I realized, that's just crap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can do anything you want to. So me being somebody, in a position that asks for a bachelor's degree with an eighth grade education, you put yourself into those spots to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do whatever you want to do. You just got to take the steps to do it. So in those moments, you have to find out, what's crap and what isn't. Wade through it, put yourself through it, and work hard to get it done. So in that situation, when I was a kid, I would take those excuses and be like, man, they're right. What's the point of this?
Mm-hmm.
I try to walk onto the football team. I did play sports, but I got injured a lot.
We'll get to that rabbit hole in a second. Okay, yeah.
But when you try to do like high school walk-ons and things like that, they have excuses. Oh, your hair is too long. You need to cut your hair.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, your parents didn't donate this kind of money, so unfortunately, there's no equipment for you to play with, or whatever excuses it is. Right? I mean, hit those excuses head on.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let them be a problem for you. Try to find a way around them to do what you want to do, because you can.
Got it. So then what you didn't like about school was that they would tell you, basically they would tell you they'd say you couldn't do certain things?
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. So like I mean, there was like 5,000 kids in my high school.
Yeah.
So there's not really the attention that kids really need to strive if they're in those moments of like, hey, so what's next? How am I going to go from here to there? Mm-hmm. We didn't really have that there.
Yeah. So what do you think if you could make, say, the perfect school system? I mean, what do you think that? I mean, I know that doesn't exist, but what would you do in that circumstance? Like, if because you realized that didn't work for you, right?
Yeah.
So then, what do you think the ideal circumstance would be for someone to have a good education?
Honestly, I mean, I think that those things were there. I just didn't have the mindset to see it. And I think that's kind of where I would tell people is it's the perspective and the mindset. I let those excuses take me down instead of trying to find a way to get around those excuses. Mm-hmm. So those opportunities may have been there. I just didn't try hard enough to see them. Yeah. So I think it's a mindset thing. You know what I mean? Like, if you want that education, you need to go out and do it.
Okay.
And nowadays it's a little easier because you can go onto YouTube University and figure some stuff out. But, when we were kids, that didn't exist. Yeah. But I think education now, it's easier to get or to learn things nowadays with the internet than when we were kids.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff you can learn. Because see, what my thing was with school is, a lot of people know this either. I didn't go to college, just because I didn't want to. I mean, my thing, my thing was like, it's funny because it's so heavily pushed within high school, but I also feel like it shouldn't be, just for the fact that like, I think when you're younger, I mean, I guess it makes sense from a business perspective of like, hey, they don't know what they want to do. Let's push college on them so they can go to college and they can figure it out. Obviously, it's a way to make money, right? But I think like, I don't think that's smart, because the thing is you can go to college whenever. It's not like you have to go right out of high school. So my thought is that obviously a lot of kids were going right into college. And I actually, like sophomore year, I remember them being like, I just assumed I was going to college because that's what everybody was doing. And then once I got older, I was like, you know what? Like, I don't think I want to, right? Let's see what's out there first. And I think that was actually a healthy perspective, because I didn't jump in and get a bunch of debt.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that I know, actually a lot of people that I know that went to college are working jobs that you didn't need a college degree for in the first place. Or if you had enough experience, you could get that position,
Yeah,
right?
they recommend that college experience, but you don't need it.
Exactly. So that was interesting. So I actually am really grateful that I thought that, but I don't know how many high school kids probably think that way. So, which is interesting.
No.
But I think, I think it should be. And I know a lot of people that have had success outside of not going to college. But for me, it was just one of those things. Like when I was in school, like I don't feel like I enjoyed learning that stuff either,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like they give me stuff. I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to even use this. So when I was at school, I was there for, sports like track and things of that nature, or it was just to hang out with people and socialize. And yeah, honestly, in my opinion, I think we learn more. I think we learn more from like an internship or like hands-on work than we would any type of sit-down kind of education.
Yeah.
And now with the internet and everything, you can learn so much and so many different avenues. And I think that was the thing too, is like I love learning things, but I like learning specific things. It's not like I like when am I going to use like calculus or algebra? Like in my position, I'm not,
Yeah.
but some people might.
Yeah.
But like for me, like no. And I do get that too. I do understand that college is for some people, right? If you're going into like you have to go to college to be a doctor. Like there's certain things you have to do, right? You can't just say like it's all about who you know, right? But in that regard, like like I think I don't know. I think it's cool that we have the ability to do. Um, I guess look up what we want these days, which I think is cool.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I've always been a firm believer that teaching should be apprenticeship and not a college degree. And I think you would get more passionate teachers if you took away the college and did apprenticeship work.
Mm-hmm.
So them spending 2 years in a classroom learning versus 4 years in a college learning, I think they'll learn more in that 2 years in the classroom.
Yeah, especially if it's hands-on.
Yeah.
If it's hands-on, they're doing the stuff. Like it's no different than like here's hypotheticals, learn this, or here, let's actually do the job, and you learn by trial and error and figure out what works and what doesn't work. I think that would solve a lot of issues, but I don't know how much. I don't know how much money there is in this one versus the other one, right?
Yeah.
And I hate saying that, but like you got to think about that when we like there's pros to capitalism, but there's also cons, and I think that's a con, unfortunately. But I would love to see that. I totally agree with you. Like I think apprenticeships, I think would be a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah. Because there are a lot of unfortunate people that don't have the money to go to school that want those jobs, they're passionate about it, but they can't get them because some of those jobs are gate kept behind college degrees.
Exactly. One thing that's really cool, not that I'm sponsored by the Jordan Peterson Academy, but I've been looking at his thing. He's actually dropping a whole thing now where he's trying to create an online learning system with the top professionals and professors from these certain backgrounds, and giving them the freedom to teach whatever they want. Like if they could give the best lecture of their life, this is what they want to do, right? And the goal is to get people to get really good, honest degrees too, because he's also not a big fan with all the other stuff the colleges are promoting within that space of certain ideologies and things of that nature. He wants people to be real,
Mm-hmm.
and he's trying to get it to where it's going to actually count as college credit too. So I think he's in that space. So, and he wanted it to be affordable. So I think he said it's only, I want to say a couple $1,000s for a degree essentially online. Yeah, exactly. So not to throw that out there, but there's different stuff going in the works that could be actually very beneficial for people that maybe don't have a lot of money, that maybe do want some type of degree or education. And if you think about someone getting the best professors out there to teach stuff, I mean, that also seems like a good avenue too. So,
yeah, I'm definitely a do-it-yourselfer. I mean, as you can see, painting my own minis and doing crafts and stuff. But I mean, I learned how to rebuild a car engine off YouTube.
Yeah. You can learn anything. I fixed a starter the other day off YouTube. It's easy. I was just like, my starter went out. I Googled the videos, like, oh, that'll take like 20 minutes. Bought a starter, changed it out. And a normal person would just been like, oh, that might be too much. Let's go take it to a thing. And I was like, I just saved a ton of money.
Yeah. So that labor is expensive, man.
Dude, it is. It is. Okay. So, so next question. So what's the biggest struggle that you've made it through?
That's tough. That's a tough one. I try to keep a very positive outlook on every situation, even when they're bad. I'd have to say probably the toughest one is, dealing with death, for instance. So going through that, that's pretty much the only thing that really knocks me off where I'm going. From a professional standpoint, it was definitely FedEx.
Yeah. Okay. Elaborate. Yeah. Tell us more.
Just in the moment, the country shutting down, that whole area, with the COVID pandemic. Every day we're going out there. Nobody really knows what's going on. And then working so many hours, I think I was making like $550 or $600 a week, working 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
So much. You're making like, I don't even know the math on that. I'm sure somebody will figure it out, but it's like $7 or less an hour. And then Missouri's minimum wage is like $12.60, so I could have gone anywhere else and made more, but we'll skip past that. But it was just long hours, and then your truck breaks down, you're stuck somewhere for a couple more hours, but you have to finish the job. So there's no one there to help you. They'll come out, get you a new truck, and then leave, but you still got 4 more hours of work to do on that. And it was a very draining job, like physically, and at the time it was very mentally draining for me, not being able to see my family or my daughter grow up. So she's like a year old by the time that I move on from the company, and I didn't get to see anything from her, like being a baby, from being a year old. So I got to miss a lot of that stuff. And then there's just, I think the thing that really sunk in for me was there was a driver that I worked with. I'm not going to say his name or anything, but he had been there for 26 years, still driving. There's no movement. He made $650. So in 26 years, he made like $50 more than I did. So it's really like, is this really what I'm trying to do?
Yeah.
It's very draining on you every day when you're driving. I delivered 2 hours away from the terminal. So I got to sit there in thought, just thinking like, man, is this really what I'm trying to get into? I think that's really what kind of helped persuade me taking a step backwards to move forward, because it was like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. This is very, mentally draining for me. Like, and then a lot of my family members got hit with COVID during that same time frame. So, I can't really figure out what's going on there because I have to drive the truck. Can't see nobody. Sorry. It's a tough, man. I'm kind of rambling here, but it was emotional at time for me.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about the child things. It's like you don't really get that time back.
No, right? You don't.
Which sucks. So
luckily, we have a really good relationship now, but
good.
I mean, it's one of those things where I try to put as much time with her while she's growing up.
Yeah, it's very meaningful, because I think I was listening to something the other day, which was interesting, as they said, especially with girls, like obviously time with mom and dad are important all the time, right? Regardless, like they're good time together. But they said where girls need a father figure the most, I think they said it was 11 to 18, I think, or something like that, which is really interesting. So not that it's like you're not needed in the younger ages, because you are, but it's interesting to think about that, like, because I was listening to that the other day, and it just was cool to think like, oh, like there's times within a daughter or a son's time where one parent might actually be more important than the other, just for certain development purposes, which that was really interesting. But yeah, the growing up part, I mean, that is tough to look back and not see that. But I'm glad that, I mean, it sounds like you made it right, though, right? By investing the time.
I mean, thankfully, my wife's got a degree in early childhood development, so she's very driven on making
Okay.
sure that I won't necessarily say education, but her growing up is the right way.
Agreed.
I mean, I guess it's not really. Well, I guess there's a wrong way, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like making sure she's getting everything she needs to develop properly.
Agreed. So where do you think that positive perspective comes from for you?
I don't know, man. I think it's just a mindset thing. Like, if I take it back to school, there's a lot of things that I can be mad about, but how much of that is something that I put on myself? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you look back to those moments where you had an opportunity and you didn't seize it, how much of it is on you? How much of it is the circumstance? And if you would have had a better mindset on it, would that circumstance have even mattered? Probably not. But I mean, I don't know everybody's life, but
Yeah.
in my situations, that's definitely how it is. So keeping a positive mindset has definitely done more for me than being negative in any. I mean, of course, we have our negative moments. We have things
Yeah.
we don't like.
Yeah.
But trying to bring something positive out of every situation, the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I strive for, what I look for. So even though I hate those jobs that I work for, what can I bring out of them? I learned a lot of good driving skills from FedEx.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. But there's a lot of things that I never would have thought of through all those driving trainings that I got. It makes me a safer driver with my kid.
True.
So I practice those every day, even though I don't drive a giant box truck anymore. And I drive a little tiny Nissan Versa, but
Mm-hmm.
I still bring those skills with me everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Same thing at the nursing home. Although I don't do things with older people anymore, I still have those skill sets of like, I can't think about it right, CPR,
Mm-hmm.
so those are life-saving skills. So I take the positive out of that. Even like the Segway stuff, that got me really into maintenance work because I had to do the maintenance on the machines and stuff. So that got me into my passion for wanting to work on cars. Now I don't have to spend all that money working on cars because I learned it all myself. So trying to pull the positive out of everything that you've done, it helps build your skill set later on in your life.
Yeah. Do you think it was innate? You think you were born that way, or do you think that was something learned?
That's a good question. I don't know, man. I feel like I've been positive as far as I can remember, but I think, I'm just a very, I don't want to say like bright as in smart, but bright as in like, I like when people are happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a people pleaser, but I don't mind if people don't like me.
Mm-hmm.
I just, want people to feel good. So I try to bring that energy. And I think I've been that way since as long as I can remember, at least back in elementary school or anything like that. But I try to continuously grow in that because I strive for that.
Yeah, always wondered that. And I think there's always that conversation as nature versus nurture, but I think it's honestly a little bit of both. When I think about, like, I'd say some of us are probably born with that type of temperament, right? Because I think about that, I'm the same way. Like, I've just always been like, I mean, I see the good in almost everything, and it's very rare that you're going to see me like upset. I don't know. Have you ever seen me upset?
I think so.
Yeah?
But I could be wrong.
Tell me, when was this?
I
don't even remember.
I mean, you can cut this out if you want to, if it's not something you want to talk about. But I think I remember seeing you upset whenever. Who was it? It was Devin got promoted to coach.
Yeah,
and there was a specialist or a lead spot open, and they wouldn't let you apply for it. They didn't let you apply for it or something like that because they let Darius move into it.
Yeah, I don't remember that. What I do remember being very upset when he got the position over me, though. I do remember that. Yeah, that's pretty rare, but yeah, I remember I was upset.
Because you had been there for like 7 or 8 years or something like that.
Well, at that point, it was 5.5 years. I think he was only been there a little bit, and I remember feeling very qualified for the position, but I had no interview skills.
Yeah,
and that was the problem because
prior to that, same way, dude.
Prior to that, dude, I never interviewed. I showed up to jobs, and they're just like, "You're hired." Yeah. I was like, "Sweet." Even with Nike, they just hired me and had me do my paperwork. Even full time, they're like, the only question they asked is like, "Why do you think you should get full time?" Because I'm better and yada yada yada. Like, okay, cool, you got it, sweet, thanks. And I just remember being like, "That's awesome," and then the moment I went to do that, I remember sitting there in the interview, and they gave me the packet, and I studied, and I tried really hard. But I remember at one point, I thought it was good at the time, but looking back, I'm like, it was terrible. So I remember them saying exactly like this, like, and I can't remember what the question was. They asked me a question. I remember being like, can we go to the next one, please? So I know if I skip a question, that's not a good sign of a good interview. But that whole thing was weird too. They didn't give me good feedback. They basically just said my interview was bad, and I was like, okay, give me more details. They didn't give me anything because the person giving me the feedback wasn't even in my interview. so of course it was terrible. And then, dude, yeah, I remember being upset. It was probably like a month straight. I was just upset about it. And yeah, I can't remember I don't remember if that might've been why Darius got, I don't remember. I can't remember if I just shut down for a bit too. But I remember after about a month, I ended up shifting and being like, okay, so I've been upset. And it's like, this isn't doing me any good, and it's not doing anybody else any good. And I think in that moment was when I was like, okay, like I got to figure it out. And then I started working hard, and I think I got a few stretch assignments at that point, but then there wasn't a lot of growth either after that point.
That's when you transferred to Osage.
And transferred to Osage, yeah, because they kept, at one point they're just like, well, if we had a position open up, you would be the person. Like I had them even saying that. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, when's that going to happen? Yeah. But I think that's a good testament to like, I think it's okay. It's okay for us to be upset sometimes and to get in that space. But I think to a certain point we have to figure out, well, what are you going to do about it? To your point.
Exactly. You need to reflect on what happened.
Exactly.
So you can be upset with the situation, but you got to reflect on what you did.
Exactly. And that was exactly the turning moment was I think that conversation of like, okay, well, this isn't doing me any good. It's not doing anybody else any good. And yeah, I can be mad at them and say like, hey, it was unfair that I was more qualified and didn't get it. Or I could say like, well, let's show them that they didn't choose right, and let's just, figure out what I can about mine and improve. And that's, exactly what happened in that space. Yeah, you're totally right though. I was mad. That was good.
Yeah, I mean, I was there too. That happened to me. That happened to me. I want to say back in the day, but it was in 2018. Same circumstances. I went through some stretch rolls, and then my buddy Scott. I think you work with Scott too.
Yeah.
He did some stretch rolls, and then a position opened. They didn't even let me apply for it, but they let him apply for it. And I remember him coming to me and be like, "Hey man, how was your interview?" And I was like, "I didn't get one." He's like, "What do you mean? They just told me they got done with it." I said, "No, I never got one." And he was like, "Huh." And then he ended up getting the position, and I just remember being like sour, just mad.
Yeah.
Not at him, but just at the circumstance, because it's like, hey, like I didn't even get an interview for this. Like, I know my interview skills are terrible. Like that's same circumstance with you. Every job I've applied at, they've just been like, hey, we just need people. So you can go ahead and start today if you want.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's definitely for anyone out there listening, looking for a skill set. You should definitely get on YouTube and check out interview skills. You don't really get a chance to ever use those until you're in an interview, and at that point, it's too late.
Yep. And that's how I learned. That's the thing is failing that interview helped me to have every other interview be awesome. So I was really thankful for that, because if I wouldn't have failed that interview, if they would have gave me the position, like if I think about it, if they would have said like, yeah, you got it, I wouldn't have worked on my interview skills after that. And then I would have ended up applying maybe for a coach and not getting that position. And like the way things happened for us, especially having Rachel during the time when I got coach and then the Econ position, was perfect. Because if I think about like if I had to learn interview skills and miss a position, I wouldn't have had enough money to raise the kid. And like so it's funny because like in hindsight, it's fun to think like, oh snap, like that actually happened perfectly, like as it should.
Yeah.
So
I'm sitting there thinking the same thing because all the opportunities that have arisen, I can kind of reflect back at those moments and being like, instead of being mad that I didn't get the interview, maybe they seen something I didn't. So now I can reflect on that moment and grow from it. Of okay, so back then I wasn't good enough to be in a leadership role, or maybe my skill set wasn't good enough. How can I reflect and change? So, and then in the long run, it works out. You just got to be willing to reflect and build those skills.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing for people is like, one, I think people in general are really bad about being self-aware. I think that's I think that's a normal problem. And everybody always says they're self-aware. That's my favorite because I do trainings all the time, and that was like the most popular answer when I was doing like some career development training session. Everybody's like, so tell me your top 5 values. Well, I'm very self-aware, and I'm just always look at those people like, I guarantee you're not, because you're saying you're self-aware means you're not no. But no, it's true. I think one, I think relatively speaking, I don't think we're very self-aware unless we really choose to be. But even then, I think it's very hard to look at ourselves as being wrong or messing up or seeing that we're not efficient in some way, right? And I think that's it takes it actually takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of stuff to look at yourself and be like, you know what, like I sucked.
Yeah.
like what? Because I think we're in like, and I think it's a safety mechanism for us, but biologically speaking, I think we like to think like let's blame them, like it's them. It's not really us, because I think it's a way to guard us from not good, or sorry, we'll say negative emotions, but emotions we don't like, right? And I think when you can embrace that, like, yeah, like I kind of sucked, like,
Yeah.
and then looking at like, okay, and then maybe that brings up some hard feelings for you, but when you can kind of like, okay, that's fine, like, makes sense that I'm sad or that I'm frustrated, but now I can put that into play, because if they see things that way, then maybe that's actually how it is. And I don't think enough people take that. And I think that's huge feedback. 'Cause, yeah, we can self-reflect all we want, and that's a good tool, but feedback from other people it's a gift at the end of the day,
Yeah.
whether it's true or not. And it could be subjective, it could be that, but if you take every feedback you get with a little bit of it, like a grain of salt, and just like, let me think about that, like huge gains there.
Yeah. I mean, in that example, so for anyone listening trying to learn from the story, in 2018, I had all the skill set to do the job.
Mhm.
I knew how to do all of the work. So,
Yep.
like, I was making all the footwear moves. I was planning all the shipments coming in. I had zero people management skills. My
Mhm.
first thought process for every task was, I'm better than them at it. I'm going to do it because it's going to take less time for me to do it. That was my mindset on every
Yep.
task that came to
Yep.
mind. Instead of delegating, you know what I mean, and going wide and using the resources available, I immediately had the mindset of, I can get it done faster than they can.
Mhm.
And then eventually you have 14 tasks and you're like, oh, I'm getting this done. And then you do 3 because you get wrapped up, and then the next day you get 14 more. And yeah, my people management skills were terrible, but I could do the job. I could do it
Yep.
better than everybody else, but that's the mindset change.
Isn't it
I got to
interesting?
reflect on that.
Exactly, yeah. And if you think about it, that's the part of the job that a manager needs to be good at, is the
Yes,
people skills,
the
right?
people
And
skills.
it's funny because you're not the only one every time. So once, because I struggle with that too. Like before I was, I'd say not before I was a lead. Yeah, before I was a lead. I think when I got into, I think the pro role, because I was in that role for way too long, like 3 years. But that's when I started realizing a lot of that stuff that I was doing, because I did the same thing. And I think a lot of us do, like those people that are achiever types that get things done. We tend to we tend to use that as our narrative, is like, well, I could get it done faster, so we put the job over the people, and we don't think about like, well, if I step back and allow someone to do it, yes, it's going to get done slower, but I'm creating a development opportunity for them.
Hmm.
And that's the mindset shift. And it's funny because every store I'd go to, there was always plenty of leaders in each store that did the exact same thing. And it was always that, like, if you looked at the work, they're like, oh, well, you're actually getting in the way of them trying to develop a bench, because that's the point of a manager. Like, your job is to, it's not to step back and do nothing, because I've also seen that, and that's awful. But it's like, but right, it's to be able to kind of like to develop other people. And sometimes it means you have to step in. Sometimes it means you have to step back. But the whole time you're developing people, you're giving feedback. And yeah, it's a people manager thing. It's a people management thing, like learning how to work with people, give people feedback and all that. And yeah, so yeah, and I felt the same way. I think when I did that first interview, that was when that was my mindset too, is like, I think I had some people skills, but on an individual level.
Hmm.
I'd say I was still good at developing people in that space, but I didn't know how to do groups of people, and clearly interview was bad, so I need to work on that anyways. But yeah, but the tasks, I nailed it. But that's the thing, is we sometimes get in our own ways in
Hmm.
that space. Yeah.
Yeah, and some people are they're not good at taking feedback.
Oh, people are
So
terrible at it.
leaders,
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good at taking feedback. You can tell me whatever, and
Hmm.
I'll at least reflect on it, even if
Hmm.
I don't agree with it. But a lot of people get defensive with it.
Yep.
So some leaders are scared to even give feedback because how defensive people can get.
Hmm.
So take your feedback with a grain of salt, reflect on your actions, and grow.
Agreed. Feedback is huge, and I've said this on this podcast before. Is that is a huge disservice to you, is if you can't take feedback, because the thing is like, and those people, funny thing is a lot of those people are the same people that are like, I want feedback. That's what they say.
Hmm.
They want feedback. The minute they get feedback, what they want is they want positive feedback. They
Hmm.
want a pat on the
They
back.
want validation.
The minute you give them feedback that is constructive, yeah, they get defensive. And the thing is, it's like, well, think about it. Like, if you want people to give you feedback, you have to be able to receive it, because otherwise people don't want to give it to you. So then what you're doing is you're missing out on a whole lot of educational opportunities and learning places to learn from by having that, by being defensive. And that happens a lot. It's crazy. And every store I went to, there was always someone that was like that, that just couldn't take feedback well, and the people were afraid to give them feedback. And they're like, I keep doing things, and I'm just like, I'm not getting where I want to go. Are you getting feedback? Well, I don't get feedback from anybody. Well, why don't you get feedback from? Oh, I don't know. And then you start talking to other leaders, like, oh, that person totally like they get so upset they walked out of the room one time I give them feedback. Like, okay, they didn't say that, right? So I think what helped though is I think having outside perspective. So I seem to always be the person giving people feedback. It's like, okay, you can't give each other feedback. Well, one, we need to figure out how we can do that, but also like I'll give the feedback, right? And people were more receptive then, but yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, big development opportunity. Okay. So what's something you're currently going through that's positive or negative?
Um, it's a good one too. I mean, I can't really give a whole lot of details on some of the stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in a negative sense, this isn't necessarily happening to me, but some of the people that are close to me are dealing with a lot of negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And then how can I word this in a way that doesn't make it sound terrible? Um, Essentially, they are getting dragged down by negativity, and they're so wrapped up in it that it's affecting their day-to-day lives to where they're not even wanting to go to work. They're calling in because they need mental health days. They're not
Mm-hmm.
even going out and seeing their friends. Um, they can't even do their day-to-day functions. They're not even doing cleaning their houses or doing what they need to. And having that positive nature for me when I see those things, um, I don't want to overstep my boundaries, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and tell people how they need to live their lives, but
Yeah.
I try to be the light in the dark in those situations. So maybe inviting those people, not necessarily sitting them down and being like, "Hey, you're being really negative. You need to change your mindset."
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's, "Hey, man, you want to go get lunch today at work?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if they're like, "Oh, I don't got no money, man, I can't," I'll be like, "I got you. We'll go to Taco Bell. It's really cheap." Getting them out of the workspace, kind of
Mm-hmm.
clear their head, talk to them about their interests, see how they're doing. That's something I do quite a bit at work, um, especially with some of the people I'm a little closer with. I know that sounds terrible, but that's just people I've worked with for like, 4 or 5, 6 years in that
Mm-hmm.
building that we've had such a strong connection with because we've worked together for so long. Um, but even outside of the workplace, being somebody that they can talk to in those situations. Nike does offer. I know I'm sounding like a counselor here, but Nike does offer certain things for mental health and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So, of course, offering those benefits to the employees that work there because it is a free benefit. Um, but it also kind of helps me reflect on those situations if I've gone through them in life to kind of give my advice on how I got through them.
Mm-hmm.
So dealing with death, like that's something I mean, I get emotional talking about it, so I'm not really going to dive really deep into that, but I can reflect because that just happened recently with me. I got a friend that's going through the same thing.
Yeah.
So I can kind of reflect on how I went through that as a really dark moment. So friend therapy is huge. Don't shut your people out. Go out with them even if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Clear your head. You got to get out of that space. You have to. It's just going to keep bringing you down until you do something stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I was there. I was very, very down in the dark. Luckily, I had friends like you worked with Tyler. You remember Tyler? Tyler Ashley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So him and his brother really helped me out in those situations where I was gone. But they really showed that for me. So that helped me out a lot.
I think that's important. I think because I even think about mine. So when I went through a divorce, I think that was my hardest thing that I went through because I haven't experienced a lot of death and not yet. I know we're all going to experience death, so I'm going to experience it later, I guess, which which sucks, and I can't imagine. But like, yeah, as far as divorce, I went into a place like that, and it sucks being in that space too because what you want and what you need is different sometimes in that space. So like, I think for me, like, I'm so grateful that I had friends and I had people that were just like, hey, let's go out. Because the thing is I didn't want to ask people. Like, I wasn't in that space, that headspace to ask people to go out or to like I wanted it, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to ask people, right? And I think that's big because I don't think I would have got through it like I did had those people not been in my life. Like, I think about my neighbor in Iowa, like I was literally going over their house. It seemed like almost every other day, like to do things just because like, hey, you want to come over? Yeah, I got nothing to do. So I'd go over there and I'd work with them, chat, have conversations. So yeah, I think it's one of the best things you can do is just, you know, have a good friend group that's there to support you, and in your space being that light to people because people need it.
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me that was really helpful. Was gaming, online gaming. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? We all live so far away from each other, so those nights where you're feeling it the most, I mean, getting on there, jumping in a party or Discord or something, and just chatting with everybody, playing a game together, doing something stupid. I mean, it's fun,
Yeah.
and you need those moments.
Yeah, I don't game, so I didn't have that luxury.
Yeah.
but yeah, and it's funny too because like we have to experience those emotions too in order to grow past it. Right? That's
Mhm.
part of the grieving process. But like sometimes we just don't have the ability to go through all that at once, right? Like because if you were to feel all your feelings in one particular moment, I think that's when bad things happen
Yeah.
sometimes, right? But I think to a certain extent, like I think we could also sometimes use those tools to not feel, which is fine to a certain degree. I think, but I've known some people that wait. I mean, I've had people that I know that have waited 20, 30 years to grieve something that like it took them that long to grieve it because they were distracting themselves from the grieving process
Mhm.
in general. So I think it's that balance of finding out like maybe it is crying for a bit, sitting in your room, like just like having these whatever thoughts, like just trying to figure out and grieve and cope with it, but then also have people there that can help you take your mind off it,
Yeah.
right? Have some fun, enjoy life, figure out like find a way through it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you definitely want to face that problem head on
yeah,
in the grieving process, and don't try to run from it or hide from it, because that's where you do dumb things like, alcoholism or drugs or
yeah,
other things. But
yeah.
um, yeah,
I mean,
that's kind of where I took it too. Like I knew the process. Like my family, they have a struggle with alcoholism, so I don't even touch it. I might have a beer here or there. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Maybe if I'm really hot and it's refreshing after
yeah,
on some yard work or something like that. But no, like I try to stay away from that, and that like I hit the grieving process head on. I
yeah,
knew what I was having to go through,
yeah,
and I just took the moments I needed to. If I needed to be alone, I'd do it alone. If I couldn't do it anymore, I'd call somebody up, talk to them, or do what I needed to. But
yeah.
don't run from it.
Agreed. Yeah, same thing. Um, yeah, I still have never drank alcohol. Fun fact. So I told myself
It's
when I
not.
went,
It's not that cool.
no, it's not. That's what I've heard. But yeah, I don't think anything good comes from it necessarily. But I told myself that was like the few negotiables when I went through that is like I'm still not going to start alcohol. I'm still not going to do drugs, nothing like that. Like I noticed when I was going through it, I was trying to cope by buying things. I bought way too many action figures during that time period. My collection got stacked because that was how I was trying to cope. Like, well, this makes me feel a little better. So yeah, so it's funny how when you start get feeling better too, you're like, why did I buy so much stuff there? Like, I need to get rid of all that stuff. But like during the time, like I was just trying to find ways to feel
Hey,
better.
but at least in that situation, you
Yeah.
can turn around and resell those.
Exactly.
And get
So
your money
it was an investment. So yeah, luckily most of the stuff I resell for better prices and actually a good investment. But yeah, I just had to have that talk with myself. It's like I'm not going to do that. But yeah, it's wild. So next question. So what's a skill or talent that you'd like to share with us?
Skill or talent.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound lame, because like when I think of skills or talents, I think of something like mind blowing that nobody else does. But I like to do like arts and crafts. I like to get crafty. I like to paint.
Okay.
I like to just do things with my hands, like build Legos or build models or build car engines. Um, I don't like to just be idle. So when we watch TV, I get bored. I usually walk away and go do something else.
I do the same thing. Dude, it's funny because I used to be a huge movie buff where I used to watch movies all the time. But then I realized, why did I watch movies? To connect with other people. So I did that when I was married.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a way for us to sit together and watch something. And then the minute that wasn't the case, I realized like I hate sitting in front of the TV watching it. So I did the same thing. I'm always off doing something else. Someone's like, "Can you watch this?" And I what I'll do is I'll put it on, and then I'll sit there for a while. Unless it's that intriguing, I end up like painting or
Yeah.
I mean, not even these days. Usually I'm doing some type of education on YouTube or
Yeah.
something random. I'm not even paying attention.
So a lot of my free time, because I am a forever DM, I just write stories. I'll write
There
like
you
small
go.
stories, connect them together. But yeah, I mean, painting, crafting, it's kind of where I'm at with my skills.
Yeah, man, I haven't done that stuff in a while. I was doing that a lot. I think now I'm just putting it all in this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of run out of space in your house, so then you're kind of, where am I going to put this?
Oh, dude, when I was in Iowa, I had a basement. So like I had everything all set up. It was everything looked pristine, looked good, the tons of room for extra stuff. And then I moved into a 2 bedroom apartment and now everything's in my bedroom. And I'm like, dude, this sucks.
Yeah.
I have no room. All the dioramas I built are all like crammed in the closet, all put down. And I'm like, well, I don't even need these anymore. I need to sell these because I'm not using them. I don't know
Yeah.
if I will now because that's not where my mind's at anymore. So it's
Well,
interesting.
yeah, being a do-it-yourselfer and ambitious,
Yeah.
I try to take on projects that are too big. You know, my wife loves it. I'm sure people can relate to that. But I've even looked at like, how can I turn my attic into more space? How can I get a shed built in the backyard so I can store some stuff there? So,
Dude, see, I'm ambitious too, but the problem is I get all my projects done. I think that's actually a problem. I know my limits now too. Like there was I I found this out. So let me share. So there's this game on Kickstarter that I wanted to buy for some reason. This was like a couple of years ago. It came out and it was like Marvel Zombicide or something like that. It was like zombies, and
Mhm.
it was this Kickstarter, and it came with all these miniatures. They're all unpainted, all this stuff, and it was a good deal for all this stuff. And I clicked purchase, and then after a while, I started thinking, I was like, dude, no, this is literally like hundreds of miniatures, and I'm going to want to complete every single one of them. And I started thinking about all the time it's going to take. And I got to the point where I just asked for a refund. So I didn't refund. They gave me the money back. But like that's where I'm at now. Is there's like a form of self awareness now where I'm like, hey, like I know that I don't stop until something's done, and that's can be a problem. And I was like, dude, I would have spent way too much time, and I would have been mad painting these things, and like, so I was like, okay, no, oh gosh. That's
I
funny.
need to get back into the miniature painting, but
Yeah, I haven't done one in a while. But yeah, so you like to paint, all that stuff. I think I was going to go some other direction with this, and I forgot. That's okay.
I'm distracted.
Yeah,
Got you
it's a funny
distracted.
story. It was all good. One thing that we didn't go back to that I want to talk about, I know it has nothing related with this, but you talked about sports injuries a
Yeah.
lot, and we didn't go back on that topic, and it made me first thing that popped in my head is when we're doing the flag football
Yeah,
league.
I remember that.
Yeah, tell us some of
That was
those.
like my last major one. So when I was 4 years old, um, I was sprinting through the house, I guess is what I was told. I don't know. I don't remember it. But I ran into the wall and I busted my skull open. Well, it wasn't until like 2019 that I found out that I also broke my neck. So when I
Gosh.
went to the chiropractor, because I couldn't even get out of my car. I had to roll out of my car. My back hurt so bad. And I was like, you know what? I'll go to the chiropractor. Maybe they could adjust and it'll be all right. So we went to a local one here in Branson. You know, shout out Hill Family Chiropractor. They did all the X-rays and everything. So they set up my physical therapy. I did it for 2 years, but yeah, essentially did an X-ray on my neck, and he's like, "Hey man, how old are you?" I was like, I think I was 26 at the time, and you know, I was like, "Oh, I'm 26." He's like, "Dude, you broke your neck when you were like 4. This injury is like 20 years old. I can tell by the way it's all calcified, and it made my neck go forward, and that's what hurt my back." So I had to go through like posture training and all kinds of stuff and adjustments, and I feel great now. But yeah, essentially I broke my neck when I was 4 doing sprinting. You can't. I'm sure you can't tell now, but I used to be really, really active. I used to play a lot of basketball. I wasn't any good, but I was really good at just setting screens, and I'd still take shots. You know, that's go back to self-reflection. You know, do what you need to win with your team. It's a team sport. If you're not good at shooting, don't take the shots. Uh, but I remember hyperextending both my knees in one game, and then I went back in and played and hyperextended it again. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I could do this anymore. I ended up developing like arthritic uh, symptoms and stuff into my knees at a very
Jeez.
young age. So it's hard for me to like do weight training or anything like that anymore now because I have like arthritis in my knees basically. Um, I did break my finger playing volleyball, and it severed the tendon from the tip of my finger, and it's actually I used to play guitar and I can't anymore because I can't bend the tip of my finger to hit the certain frets, so I stopped playing.
Wait, so you can't play with 3 fingers?
I'm sure I could, but at the time, that's one of those moments where the opportunity was there and I let circumstances take me down. I'm sure I could have continued that, but I was like, oh, I can't move my finger anymore, so I'm just going to put it away. So, tackle adversity. Be better than I was. But yeah, the last major one, that's actually when we played for a flag football team that we threw together. It wasn't a Nike team. We were just all working for Nike.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing offensive line the whole time. The very last play of the game, I went out for a pass just because we were winning, and I was like, oh, why not? And he passed it to me. And somebody tripped me, and I landed on my shoulder and slid. And I remember it popping, but it didn't hurt. And I remember being like, hey, did I break my collarbone? And I was like, I don't have any idea. But I finished the game. We finished playing the game. And then when I tried to drive home, I drove a standard truck, like a stick shift. And I couldn't get my arm over the steering wheel with my hand. And I was like, oh, no. So I drove myself to the hospital. And yeah, I broke my collarbone in 2 places.
Dude, and the funny thing is I'm pretty sure I was there for that game. I'm sure I was.
We
had no idea because you were so, like, I think I broke my collarbone. And I'm just like, okay, like you seem okay to me, but you know what I mean? Like you can't tell, dude. Because that was funny. Because you and I, we both played the line on that. That was the best part, line. Dude. We killed it. So I just remember our system. We had an odds and evens number system. So what we would do to share our secret is so we played with a bunch of. So we played at nighttime too. It was like 10 o'clock at night or something like that. So we played like 10 o'clock at night. We played for a couple hours because we played with all the stage hands for the shows in Branson that got done at like 9 o'clock or something. So yeah, we'd play, and yeah, we brought a team out. We ended up at some point we had way too many people. We had to make 2 teams. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had a system where we just it was flag football. So we were like, okay, let's put pressure on these quarterbacks. And they had a rule: you can only have 1 person rush. So what we did is we had me and him at the front. And if we said, I think it was like an odd number, he would go. If it was an even number, I would go. And we just say random numbers so nobody ever caught on to it. And every time we'd say something, like someone would go, and dude, we were sacking people like crazy. Yeah. We were like, dude, there were times where the quarterback could never get off. Like, block these guys. We don't know who's going next. And we're just like, yes.
Dude, that one team had 3 blockers at one point.
They did.
It was 7-on-7. It was so half good. Their team was 3 blockers and the quarterback, so 3 people were playing.
Look at that. That's what happens when you get some creative people up front. Because it was just like that person would go, the other person would fill in, and we'd block up short. Yeah, it was good. That was a fun time. I jammed my thumb a lot though.
Dude, I remember that same game I broke my collarbone. I came off the line too fast, and I fell into that guy's leg and hurt his leg.
I think I remember that. Actually, yes, I do. You had a really hard. I think we were all like, why'd you do that? Because it looked intentional, even though I know you didn't. But it looked like you just got out of position, just tackled this dude. And we're just like, Mike, what the heck? Dude, I remember playing my role sometimes, and that was the worst. So when we had John Clark. Remember, he was doing he was quarterback. He was pretty good.
Him and Ty were quarterback.
We had a good little system there. Because I love going out for the routes receiving. We had a really good system, but dude, there were times where he was just one of those guys. I love John, but he was also one of those guys where he'd get so competitive and agitated about things. I played the peacekeeper all the time during those games. If they'd be like, they're offsides, you know what? We were offside, they'd be like, Ricky, what were we? He's the most honest guy I know. And I'm like, dude, why am I playing this part in this game right now? They were literally playing, were we offsides or not? Or just all this stuff. And I was like, dude, I would just be like, it doesn't matter. If they're going to dispute it, just let them play, let them do whatever. And it's because that was my mindset. We're just playing for fun. Why do we need to be all agitated and upset about these small calls? So yeah, I played that role sometimes, the peacekeeper or whatever, the person in the middle. It was hilarious, but that was fun. I missed that. It was a good time playing flag football. It was probably that was when I realized I should probably play football a little bit, but then I never did.
Yeah.
Sad days. So then, what's something you're currently learning about that you'd like to teach the audience?
Something I'm currently learning about. where can I take this that's actually entertaining? Uh,
Wherever you want.
yeah. So something I'm actually doing is I've been doing kind of like my own podcast with a group of friends, and then learning all those skills on how to actually run a podcast or run an entertaining show. So we do. We're kind of all over the place. We're trying to be more of an entertainment group instead of just like a niche of like, hey, we just play D&D or we just do this, so people can actually engage with us in like an entertaining content, or look at us as entertainers. So we actually do play D&D on it, and then running the stories has been very fun. It's been very fun. Um, I love like improv. That's probably something that
me too.
It takes a lot of skill to do, because you have to be in the moment thinking of like, hey, what's this guy going to do next? Because here's my plan, and I know this isn't going to happen. Anyone that's played D&D or DM for D&D, whatever you put on the paper is not happening. So your notes are probably very minuscule. So when you have this conversation with this nobody NPC that now has to be written into the story because improv, because the people took it this way, it's fun. The other thing we're doing is like, we call them appetizers because it kind of goes in with our name, but it's kind of our warm up before, so we can get everybody, comfortable on the mics. We just ask stupid questions to each other like, hey, what's your favorite Marvel hero? Or who would you be if you were in the Marvel universe? Or what kind of powers would you have? We did one where it was, what cartoon TV world would you live in? Silly little things like that, but it gets everybody really comfortable. And then, the next step I'm doing for skills is editing. I really want to get into editing, but more than just like edit the videos down, but put like the soundboard stuff in there and create sound effects on voices or anything like that. I think that'd be really cool. But I have no skills whatsoever in editing, so it's gonna be I'm sure a good time, a wild.
Once you start it, you'll figure it out. That's what I'm figuring out.
I feel like everyone that does editing hates it.
Well, it just depends. I don't mind it, but I'm doing so much that I figure it out. But I also don't highly edit any of these things either for authenticity purposes. But I don't know. It just depends. Like if I'm doing something like a creative spin on the editing, then I absolutely love it. But if it's just like trimming things here and there, that it is what it is. But the thing is I've been so patient for that for so long, because I wrote music for so long, and I just released another album. So you get to where you realize editing, it takes a long time. You get used to the process, because that the finished product is going to be good at the end of the day, or at least it's going to be something, right? So it's going to be something. So yeah, you'll figure it out. But okay, so what's the name of your podcast?
It's called Dinner and Dungeons.
Dinner and Dungeons. Okay, and it is on what platform?
Right now it's just on YouTube. We haven't done anything big yet until we've really laid down a consistency for when we're going to drop our episodes. Okay. So we're shooting right now for one a week, but it just depends on how fast we're getting them churned out.
Cool.
But we're working on scheduling. I think that's the hardest part for anyone that plays D&D. You know how hard scheduling is. Yeah. But it's working out pretty well.
That's good. Yeah, adaptability. It's funny. It's funny you talked about adaptability earlier, and it's funny how that works. It's a good skill to have, because I remember doing that a lot in HeroScape. None of the scenarios ever turned out the way I wanted them to. Yeah. Like, and I'd write these whole elaborate stories and all this stuff, but it'd always be like a setting, like this is what we're doing, and I knew that everything would unfold. And yeah, there were plenty of times in the matches where you had to be like, we'd have to throw something else in there or do something different, because it's like got a little wild. But every game turned out good. But it was just like, things rarely go. So I understand that. It's like you have to be able to improv in the moment. Yeah. Okay. So hey, give us a little appetizer for fun. Let's do this. Can we do that real quick?
Yeah, if you want
to. Let's do it. Yeah. Give us an appetizer so we can show these these audience members what your podcast is gonna like.
All right. So we'll just come up with a question real quick. Usually we kind of go around the table and we switch it up, but like we'll do one that's something. I don't know, what's something that you're interested in that I'm also interested in?
Pick something random. Like, we'll see.
Well, you talked about the Marvel zombie side stuff, so we'll kind of go there. So, like, let's say we'll combine two. We're in a zombie apocalypse. Which Marvel hero do you think would be the best to help get us to safety?
Okay. Anything else we need to know?
That's it.
As far as setting, that's it.
Yeah, and we'll come up with it on the fly. So if we got questions, we'll just
Okay.
let's say they're let's say they're World War Z zombies, just
Okay.
to make it more interesting.
Okay.
So they're adaptable. They're climbing walls. They're doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
Okay. Got it. Okay. And safety is off planet.
Sure,
Doesn't
we'll do
matter.
that. We'll do off planet. Yeah, let's see. Let's see.
So you're going to find out. This is how I, I like, because I'm actually trying to figure out the best scenario.
Yeah.
So I need to figure that out. Okay. Okay. So we're trying to get off world. Dude. Okay. So let's see. I would say, and how many people are we trying to save? Just us?
Just us.
Just
yeah.
me. So me and you?
Yeah, let's say just me and you.
So you
one,
and me.
one hero. Who do you? And it's got to be a hero. We won't do a villain because then you could just be like, oh, I'm gonna get Galactus.
I mean, I feel like it could be. I feel like that could be easy at the same time. Like if you had Doctor Strange, he just teleports us to a new planet.
Yeah,
that's pretty simple. If I wanted to go for something a little more epic than that,
if his portal stays open long enough and they get in,
okay, it's true. So we would have to find a place that's a little more secure for him to at least let us through for 10 seconds and close it. I feel pretty confident that he can do that.
Yeah.
Because that seems like the easiest bet. Otherwise, first thing popped ahead was like a
Silver Surfer could probably.
Silver
really
Surfer
was
the first person popped ahead because first he's got like tons of ability, he just destroy everybody there, and I guess he could fly us up and probably put a gravity force field around us to get off planet if we need to. Or Spawn was the only one that popped in because he's already dead anyways. You can't really kill him and he's powerful. So
it's easier when it's Marvel heroes because they have such good power.
Yeah.
So like it's not really stopping them. But I mean, people that would kind of be useless would be like Professor X because they don't have minds to melt.
True. Unless it's like from X2 and he could freeze everybody. Could he freeze zombies?
I don't know because his thing messes with their brain functions, right?
Yeah, because I assume it just freezes it because everybody thinks that no time has passed, which doesn't make any sense. Like you think you'd be like, dude, why is it 3 o'clock? It was literally just 2:15 a second ago. Anybody else notice that? Yeah, I thought the same thing. That's weird. Like nobody talks about those things.
I feel like the X-Men in general wouldn't be that great.
Probably not. I'll freeze all the zombies. Okay.
I mean, Storm could be alright, but you kind of run the risk of her throwing like a tornado or something and then them getting you.
Yeah, I guess you got to think too. If one of them gets bitten, then those abilities are against us. But I don't think you're going to convert Silver Surfer or Spawn because Spawn's already dead. I don't think you convert them to zombies.
Do you think the Hulk could get scratched and turn into a zombie?
Depends which one we're talking about, I guess. Because like the original one, like wouldn't it one of those things like his skin couldn't be penetrated except by like Wolverine's claws? But then it seems like in some of the movies, it seems like he's got wounds from other things. So I don't know.
Could you imagine going up against a zombie Hulk?
Yeah, that would suck. Because he's already angry and you already risk getting hurt anyway. So the fact that he's a zombie and wants to eat you, then yeah, it's probably not good.
He's ripping the building apart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So who would you pick then?
I don't know, man. It's tough because like I want to say something like a Wolverine, but like what's he gonna do? Get bit? And then when you try to kill him, he's just gonna regenerate himself.
Uh-huh.
So then you're just.
The thing is, could he even be bit? Because could it even be toxin? Like, would he regenerate fast enough to where the toxin would
I don't know. So that's a good. Because then he could just kill them all. We could just sit there and just chill.
Yeah.
On a real note, though, I think somebody like Doctor Strange was a good one. I was thinking something like that could manipulate, like multiverses. You could just go to a different one.
Yeah.
Like Bishop.
Yeah. Exactly, and if he has the time stone, like he just like if they start approaching, he just reverses time. They all go back. He sets the portal up. We go through the portal. He sets the portal down. We're all good. We're safe.
Yeah, or just go to a different world. Just go live in their universe where it's not zombies.
Now the hard thing would be like, well, what if we wanted to stay on that world though?
Mm-hmm.
That would be a little more challenging. So say there was still life on it, but we were
tasked with destroying the zombies. That'd be a little more interesting.
Exactly. Because then we would like, okay, well, how do you have someone not just get us out of there, but also somehow preserve us from it?
That's when we get DC and we bring Superman over.
Nah, he's overpowered.
Yeah, he is.
But then again, not necessarily. If you watched, so have you ever read Wizard magazine?
No.
So it was like I don't know if they still do it, but they did like a whole superhero, like top 10 superheroes most powerful, and he was ranked like 3.
Really?
Was he ranked 1?
Who was 1?
Silver Surfer.
Makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense. I mean, how well would the Avengers stack up if you just had all of them?
Well, that depends on which. Like, if you're talking about all the Avengers that have ever been part of it, I
guess I
think
mean,
every hero's been part of
I
it.
guess I
Avengers at
mean
one
from the
point.
movies.
From the
From
movies,
the
okay.
MCU, yeah. So, like, you got the Avengers from the MCU, like, Avenger movies. Like,
Okay, so, but are we calling everyone that was in Endgame as an Avenger?
no, just like like Captain
Okay.
America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and
Depends
Hawkeye
how many
and Iron
zombies, but they are adaptable, they can run, they can climb, because it's World War Z zombies.
Yeah.
And then they risk being converted. I mean, it also depends on, I don't think anybody's going to get through Iron Man's armor, so he's probably safe. Captain America, it depends on his, because he has a regenerating factor too.
Yeah.
But if he can do that, then you'd have him against you.
I guess in the what if he does turn into a zombie.
Yes, exactly. They made him all turn into zombies. I'm like, but there's certain, I don't know, there's certain people you're probably safe with. Thor, same thing. Can an Asgardian shift that? Hulk, can his skin be penetrated? I don't know. I'd say we would be.
I'd say there's probably like a 65% chance of survival.
I think so. I mean, there's still a chance because it depends if you get some of the people converted. But then, if I was an Avenger, I'd say like, "Hey, you're off task for this one." Like Hawkeye, I'd be like, "Hey, you stand up high somewhere and start shooting. We don't need you starting to shoot at us to get converted." Or Black Widow or somebody like that. You'd have to have certain people you put in that fight.
Agent Coulson.
Agent Coulson. That's what we should do. We should put the worst people in there. Agent Coulson, Nick Fury. We have all the people that could totally get bitten.
The dude from X-Men that when you look away from him, you forget him. Was it Forget Me Not?
I don't even remember him. You made me think of Mystery Men. Is what you made me think of. Remember,
That's such a good movie.
What was he was the guy that's like you can he's like when you don't look at me I become invisible, and he's like, oh, can you show us? No, because if you look at me then I'm visible again. Well, what if we they're trying to say it and he's like, no, because I'd be visible, so the whole time people think he can't turn invisible until he does one time. He's like, what about if you look at yourself? No, if I look at myself I become visible too. Okay. So you're only invisible when absolutely nothing or nobody is looking at you. Yeah. Okay. Okay, sweet.
That was a good movie, man. I gotta watch that one again.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like these questions. These are good. So this is kind of how you start off your.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we do a warm up, so we get everybody comfortable
like
on the mic instead of just throwing them straight into it, and then when we start talking to them, because I know sometimes when you get into role playing, you get that awkward moment until the feeling hits.
Yeah.
So we kind of just start off with an appetizer, something silly like that, where
Mhm.
it gets people's brains moving, gets them talking,
Makes sense.
gets them thinking, and then we go into the episodes.
Cool. That's cool. And then are you going to do, or is your plan to have like the appetizers like clips by themselves sometimes too?
We do. We actually post the appetizers by themselves, so they're
Nice.
not actually part of the episodes.
Oh, okay, cool. I like that. Sweet. Okay, so what have you been doing for fun?
For fun, pretty much I've been hitting the podcast pretty hard. It's fun coming up with the different kind of contents and things like that. I have a blast doing that. Of course, playing D&D. That's been my favorite game for years now, 20 years. So anytime I can get together and play that, I'm going to be doing that. One of the games that we've been playing though is a Marvel RPG. I know we've been talking about that, but it's basically Marvel D&D.
Nice.
They got the the character profiles for everybody. It's not.
So does it have a name?
Yes, it's called Marvel Multiverse RPG, or role-playing game.
Okay, no, that's not the one I was thinking. Okay, cool.
I know they've had several in the past, but no, I like it a lot. They have the character profiles, but they only have they call them ranks. So they got ranks from 0 to 6. So some of the balancing is a little off for some of the characters, but I mean, it even states in the book that if you feel a character should be stronger, you can make them stronger, or vice versa. If they're too strong, you make them weaker. So you just got to use your DM mind and finagle that a little bit, but I love this system because it's so simple. It's only 3 6-sided dice.
That's nice.
Yeah, so instead of carrying around, 7 different dice and being like, oh, which one does this one use again? Pretty much all the actions are just 3 6-sided dice. Excuse me. But the characters are interesting. People know them, so it's been really fun. But then also, like with the group that I'm playing with now, a lot of them don't have like a love for fantasy worlds. So I can make it more relatable to real world with Marvel. So like we did a group or like a little campaign, and I kind of asked the group where they wanted to go, like what time frame, and they all wanted to do 2006 for some reason.
Okay.
But I'm familiar with it, but they're all younger than me. So, there's moments where they're like, I'm going to pull my cell phone out and start texting, or I'm going to FaceTime. I'm like, that didn't exist. Can't do that. It's like, okay, when we get on Facebook, I was like, Facebook's not out yet. You got to get on MySpace. They're like, okay, when we get on my phone, I was like, there's no MySpace app, dude. You got to go to your computer, man. And they're like, man, 2006 sucks.
Because that's what they're racing. I know. So funny.
But no, it's been a blast. I love that game. They do have an X-Men book coming out. I think it actually releases today, which is August 6th, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually came out today, so I'm excited to go scoop that up. Because I think X-Men's probably my favorite little sub-genre of Marvel. One of my favorite heroes from Marvel. Other than that, I'm still gaming. I play a lot of Overwatch or World of Warcraft. Actually, the Marvel Rivals game just came out, which is like Overwatch is a 6v6 hero shooter. It's been a blast. I got to play the beta for that, so that was fun. And then I hang out with my wife. Typically doing whatever she wants to do because I spend so much time doing what I want to do.
Nice. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. You know what I need to so since you're really it seems like you're really well versed in RPGs, I need to run the Mutant Chronicles RPG by you. I invested in all the books and well, because I found them for cheap because I don't know, they had a campaign, a Kickstarter or whatever, but I've read through it. I've just never done an RPG. Like I've made HeroScape scenarios, of course, but like, and the in-depthness of it is pretty wild. Like as far as like the character life path, all the different things like you assign to people. I've been trying to figure that out. So maybe you'd be someone to kind of like.
Yeah, I could probably look into it.
Look at it because I have the digital files too, so I could send you the digital files. Because I have all the books physically, and then I also have them all digitally.
Yeah. A lot of them play the same at the core.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, so it's just the rules that kind of change. Some of them are really rules heavy and some of them aren't. And the ones that are rule heavy, I would say are easier for like newer players to learn because you don't have to interpret that rule yourself. You can just look it up and then, oh, hey, they got the rule for this, so we're just going to go by it. Some of the ones that don't have that, you really got to make that up on the fly, and it's got to be fair to where your players are actually enjoying what's going on.
Yeah.
So that'd be I like the ones that are more rules light, so I can interpret them, but I just can steal rules from other games if I need to.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a 2D20 game system, I think.
That's kind of how the Fallout one is.
Is it? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I looked at it, and I have a vague understanding of it at one point. It's been a while. And I created a character life path just to see what that was like. But I have not played, and I just remember looking at everything and being like, this seems like a lot, and I just need to play it. So, and I've heard, too, before you're DM, it's usually best to just join one and see how it plays first.
Yeah.
So maybe if you do something like that, if I'm ever in town or if we can figure something out, I wouldn't mind joining you. Because, I don't know how they play or anything like that. Never done it.
Well, the best thing about playing with new players is they don't know anything is wrong whenever you're doing rules, so you can really just be as loose as you want to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of those games, like, you can just throw the rules out if you need to, if it's going to make the table fun, because that's realistically what you're trying to do, is make sure everybody at the table is having a good time.
Yeah.
So if any rules are preventing that from happening, I usually just get rid of them.
Cool. Makes sense then. Yeah, I'll have to hit you up on that and show you. It's pretty cool. I like the whole story behind the concept. I really like. That's why I get into that universe, is because it's just a very cool story in general. It just, for some reason, it doesn't hit. It hits enough to be somewhat popular, but it never sticks around. Because, Mutant Chronicles apparently has been around since like the early 90s or something. They kept making books, but it's like, I don't know. It's weird. If anybody's listening that knows that, let me know in the comments if you're a fan, because I'm so curious, because I feel like I'm the only person ever talking about that particular game. It's silly.
I think you're the only one that's mentioned it to me before.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's got such potential. They even made a movie
Really?
with Thomas Jane. Yeah, Punisher, right? Am I saying his name right?
I have no idea.
I think that's right.
Is that the dude from The Walking Dead?
I don't know. I don't know. He was in The Mist. Did you watch The Mist?
Yes.
He was the main guy in The Mist.
Okay, so you're talking about like the old Punisher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Not
Sorry,
the
not
Netflix one,
John Bernthal or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, not him. No, sorry.
So yes, I know who you're talking about. Then,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. He actually played in it.
Really?
The movie, and Ron Perlman's in it.
Really?
It had this cast. Yeah, it had this cast, and the movie isn't anything like the book. It's the best part. Is like it's terrible. It's like they have the same factions. They have these high level actors, and it's like an indie movie that is not very good. It's hilarious, but yeah, they made a movie. And it doesn't follow any of it. Silly. Okay. So here's a good one. So who's someone who's changed your life that doesn't know it?
Well, I think there's many because I'm kind of like a vicarious learner, so I like to learn from other people's mistakes, so I don't have to make them.
Yeah.
But I mean, we talked about it earlier. Whenever I started my Nike career with a lot of you guys, I had no intentions of working retail at all. That was just a stepping stone until I could find a job because I couldn't find one. I mean, I was only jobless for like half a month, but it was still like, I need something else. This isn't going to work for me. But mindset change, go to work, have an open mind about it. But you guys really spent all that time working with me as I was a temporary employee. And after 90 days, I was gone. You guys didn't have to spend that time on me. You could have shoved me at the cash register until my time was up and sent me on my way. But you guys invested in me, really trained me, the footwear knowledge. I had no idea footwear could have technology like that. I thought it was just a piece of cloth with some foam on it, and that was it. But footwear is way more in depth. I mean, you guys spent so much time working me, like Brad, you, Brett, Donovan. I mean, there's more. Devin taught me a lot of leadership skills in the last few years that he probably doesn't even realize. It was just little things that he was like, hey, man, you could probably do this instead.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, I could definitely do that instead.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of people management skills from him where, I talked about not having any. But that's a self-reflection of how can I learn from just watching him and pick those skills up and take that to my own account. I learned a lot of like work ethic stuff from my dad. He never really sat down and said, hey, you got to work hard. You really got to do this. But just watching him, I mean, he dropped out of high school as well. He doesn't run a yard, but he runs all the buying for a yard in San Antonio. So I mean, he's got a 6-figure job with a 8th grade education.
Yeah. So,
it's inspiring to see that hard work and learning those things can really push you into, the same future, I guess. I know there's more because when you sent me this, I had a good answer for this. Excuse me. I mean, I think your family has a lot of influence, especially in this realm, especially if you do a lot of vicarious learning where you're learning through other people's issues or mistakes and things like that. Just watching others is big. Like learn from other people's mistakes. I know people talk about that a lot, but really, really dive into that and you can grow yourself into something special.
Agree, there's wisdom in that, but rarely do we learn from others' mistakes, and we tend to learn firsthand.
But that's because you don't want to reflect on what the real issue is in front of you, such as like feedback. You don't want to take feedback properly, but even if you're the ear listening to somebody else getting poor feedback, how can you reflect on the poor feedback that they got? Yeah, that's another depth of learning that a lot of people don't look at.
Yep.
So even if you're sitting in the room and I'm getting poor feedback, maybe that happened to you too. So now you can learn from the feedback that was given to me in a situation that maybe you didn't know about. But I think in the sense of how it affected me personally, I think a lot of you guys that worked with me at Nike really pushed me into who I am today. Because Nike is really where I fell in love with like learning new things again and really pushing myself to educate myself in things that I really liked.
Yeah. It's crazy too, because it was just, and I think that speaks volumes to just think about how much people can impact people's lives without knowing it, right? Just by investing in people, caring about people, wanting to see people do better. And yeah, you just never know how you impact people. It's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've shared quite a bit of stuff, but let's do, if we were to have a story from when you were born to now, what would that title be called?
I don't know, man. I thought about this for a little while.
Did you? It's usually the toughest question for most people on
Yeah.
the podcast, but this is what I make the thumbnail for every video. So if you were to compile, because you shared a lot of stories, or if you were to compile some of the stories you shared, some of the stuff, your interest, whatever, like, what do you feel like that would be called? Because I'm sure there's more chapters being added to this book, but say this is just like book one, right?
I don't know, man. Like growing up a lot, I pride myself on growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I always continue to try to push myself, not to be better than anybody else, but to be better for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I set myself like higher standards and things like that. But I don't expect people to reach what I'm reaching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how I would put this in a title. I think that's the toughest part.
That's it then? Let's see. Let's work through this. Let's see what we got. So, because yeah, you mentioned growth. So growth is a big one.
I mean, it could be something silly like the Dungeon Master of Self-Reflection.
Is that what we're going to go with? Of self-reflection. Okay. I mean, I think that's probably a win.
Yeah, I think that's something that I still do to this day. Even if, like, in the moments I feel I did the right thing, I still self-reflect on. And I don't beat myself up and give myself anxiety of, like, oh, man, could I have done that better?
Mm-hmm.
But I still reflect on the situation of, like, did everybody walk away from this situation at least somewhat satisfied with it, especially when it comes to, like, negative things or any of those situations?
I do the same thing. A lot of self-reflection. Yep. But it's funny because I also feel like, to your point, like I rarely feel anxiety about it. I mean, there's some situations where you do, but it's very rare. Most of it's like, I don't know. It's just like self-reflection on, how things went out. Now, these days, I have a better standing of being like, it was all good enough, but to a certain extent, there is still some of that. So, so this is kind of the part of the episode where you get to kind of share more about you. I know you shared your podcast already that you're starting out, but this is like where you get to market, advertise whatever you need. You can share your socials if you want. Just what are the things that we maybe didn't talk about that you want to share with the audience?
Gotcha. So I don't have any personal social medias.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of stepped away from that, but I do help run the Instagram for the podcast, which is the same name.
Okay.
That's pretty much as far as I get into socials.
Okay. Okay. Are you going to get any other ones for the podcast business potentially?
Yeah. So we plan on launching more. We just didn't want to try to spread ourselves too thin. So once we really start getting the content built up, we're going to really push that.
Okay.
But the reason why I stopped using social medias is just because I found myself just searching through them for no reason. And I would just be like, I'd pull my phone out, look at Facebook, and look at the same 7 posts every day. So then I finally was just like, you know what, I'm going to delete that. I have better ways I could spend my time. It was just like a time killer for me.
Yep. That's the unhealthy part of social media.
Yeah. So
I use it for output, not input, except for YouTube. But YouTube's because I'm actually learning things. Mm-hmm. Or I'm entertained by stuff. Maybe I'm watching UFC recaps and stuff because I still get into all that. But but I think especially these days with podcasting, it's definitely one of those things you want to try to get on the socials. Is what I'm figuring
definitely.
out.
And so, I'm growing on that aspect of like I need to figure out what's too much and what isn't. So I mean, I'm finding myself back on those platforms and things like that, running the Instagram and doing TikTok stuff and
Yeah.
YouTube, and so
Perfect. So, and I know this one's not going to air for a while, so those listening, they won't know. But if you come up with anything between now and when it airs, I'll just put it all in the description too. So
cool.
if you decide to make a Dinner and Dungeons Facebook, or
We do have one.
Okay.
It's just what I post on Instagram. It allows me to post on that too.
So it just goes from that story to
Yeah,
that story.
exactly.
Yep, got it. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. Sweet. Okay, I like that. Anything else you want to share as far as the marketing, anything like that?
No, not really. I mean,
cool.
I'd appreciate everyone's views and their time spent watching it, and I would enjoy some feedback. We talked about constructive feedback, so if you guys got anything, let me know. Lay it on me.
Put it in his DMs. That sounds dangerous. Okay, so the way I like to end these podcasts, so we have, for every guest, I have them create their own question for the next guest. So what you're going to do is you're going to answer the question from the last guest I had, and then you'll get to create one for the next person I have a conversation with.
Cool.
So, so your question is, if you could choose a fictional character, hold on, let me read my handwriting real quick. Give me a second. Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, if you could choose a fictional character that you relate to, who would it be and why?
Fictional character that I relate to. That's a good question.
It's funny, this person also is a Marvel fan too. This happened to work out perfect.
I mean, a lot of people say that I remind them of Beast from X-Men.
Okay.
Because I have physical strength. I have long hair and a beard. I'm unkept in that range. And then they say I have a lot of knowledge and intelligence. I have a lot of wisdom. I don't know if I've given you any today, but I mean, I agree with it. If I could relate to somebody fictional, I mean, I'm not a doctor by any means, but I definitely like to have a sort of intellect or a very logical thinking when I handle situations or do anything like that. And then, of course, I do have the physical strength. I could probably beat him in an arm wrestling match.
I like that. I could relate. I could see that. I could see you being Beast, actually, in this, especially since you explain it. So I know I'm going to wait, and I'll answer this question later, because I know she also asked me, like, hey, who would you be? I was like, I got to wait till the Q&A episode. But I'm just curious, so, because I also think this could be fun in the reverse, too, of like, so who do you think, like, just knowing me, who do you think I would be?
That's tough, man. There's a lot of things that come to mind, but because you have so many qualities. I don't know. I keep going back to Quicksilver for some reason.
Quicksilver?
Yeah.
Okay, you got to tell me more about that. I would have never thought. Okay, tell me more.
Well, I mean, I shouldn't say a lot of sports, but we played a lot of football together, and you definitely got the speed. And then you're very, like, witty when it comes to, like, one-liners and things like that. It just feels like the personalities match a lot from, like, the X-Men movies that he's in. Yeah. Not necessarily the Avenger ones, but, like, the Fox X-Men ones.
Yeah, because I didn't die.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remind me of Quicksilver because you quickly come into a movie and you're forgettable, and then you get killed at the end.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like, the one where the building's blowing up and he has that really cool scene where he's saving everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know why it brings me to that, but I also think like Cyclops. Just like just natural leadership things, and but I mean, I kind of feel like Cyclops is. I don't know how PG you are, but I kind of feel like Cyclops is kind of a dick, but you're not. So that's where like that doesn't match up at all there. But he seems very self-centered, and you're not.
Yeah.
I mean, Iron Man's a pretty good match too, because you're very creative, you're intelligent, but Cyclops Iron Man's kind of self-centered, and you're not.
I mean, I'm sure I have self-centered qualities.
But he's very open to being self-centered.
Yeah. That's funny. No, I can see that. That's funny. I never even thought about, because I've thought about this question. I haven't done it yet, obviously, and I'll do that later. But I mean, I think Iron Man came to mind a little bit, but I don't fully put my eggs in that basket. But yeah, I haven't heard Quicksilver or Cyclops, but those are interesting ones.
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you. I dig it. Okay, so now what question do you want to leave for the next guest?
Gotcha. So the one I was thinking of was, like, what moment in your life did you realize it was, time to make a change and put the pedal to the ground?
Okay, so what moment in your life did you realize?
Did you realize it's time to make a change?
Make a change.
And put the pedal to the ground. Not necessarily for like success, but you know what I mean. Like, when did you realize it was time to pick it up? Time to do something different.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm excited. Excited to deliver that one. Okay, and then you should use that question I gave you for your next appetizer. That was a good question. The fictional character one. Yeah, that could be fun.
I'll take a picture of it.
Oh, I'll just tell you after the podcast. You can't read this handwriting.
Okay, cool.
I couldn't even read it. I was looking like, what was I trying to write there? And it doesn't even. Oh, I know why I wrote all bad, because I had this thing over it. Because like, why did I try to cram everything in? It's like to the end of the page. That's why. Yeah, because usually I'm like trying to keep like, and I'm just I'm going.
Yeah. I mean, if you send that to me, we'll throw that on an appetizer.
Sounds good. Cool. So hey, this has been awesome. I'm glad we got to chat. We got to connect. It's been a minute. Anything else that you want to share with the audience before we close down?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot. It's been fun.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do another one sometime, and maybe we'll dial into maybe something specific. Maybe it's like, I mean, we're both into Marvel. Maybe we can dig into a Marvel thing once. Maybe I could bring someone else on too, because I have a couple other Marvel buds that would just want to hop on and talk shop just for a little bit.
Talk Marvel.
Exactly. So maybe we have one episode, because I'd like to do that, because I like these ones, but I'd also like to have a few specific episodes, because as I talk to people, I start realizing like people's like niches, like what they're really into. Mm-hmm. And like how we could have a really cool conversation based on that.
Yeah.
So.
See, that's what I love about the appetizers, because if we start thinking about those questions, they're such like, because we usually keep them like 15 to 30 minutes, so we can just take that question and make it a topic.
There we go.
It's like right in the moment. So it works out really well.
It's perfect. I love that. Well, Mike, it's been awesome.
My hands are really sweaty, so
that's okay. That's okay. It's okay. We played football together. We're good. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.